Let's turn to John Suarez, who's Executive Director of the Center for a Free Cuba. He joins us now on Skype from Miami. Good to speak to you. How significant a moment is this?
It is a significant moment because what we're probably going to see is someone other than a Castro formally head of the regime in Cuba. It'll be the first time in 62 years. However, this is due to the fact that they got a lot of bad press when they did the succession back in 2006 from Fidel to Raul Castro, describing this as a monarchy. So if Raul Castro were to turn over power formally to his son Alejandro Castro, who, by the way, is an intelligence officer who oversaw the negotiation between the United States and Cuba for normalizing relations during the Obama administration, and also led the organization of the meeting between Raul and Vladimir Putin that same year. Having him formally assume power would open up the regime to charges that it was a monarchy, similar to what's happened also in North Korea with the different generations of leadership passing down from father to son. So I believe that Raul Castro wants to avoid that. So they'll have someone like a Diaz-Canel or someone else to assume the head of the Communist Party, which is the maximum authority of the in the regime, but you will still have the Castro dynasty. Not only Raul Castro himself, but also his son Alejandro Castro, Raul Castro's son-in-law, General Luis Alberto Rodriguez Callejas, who oversees the economy through the military conglomerate of Gaesa. 60% of the Cuban economy is directly under the control of a Cuban family member. So all those factors indicate to me that the Castro dynasty will remain in control of the destiny of Cuba, at least over the short term. However, with Raul Castro leaving power, it does open the opportunity for victims of the regime, like Brothers to the Rescue shootdown victims, to pursue Raul Castro in international courts under the basis of universal jurisdiction, the same way that it was done with Augusto Pinochet back in 1998, if I recall correctly, in London, when a Spanish court sought his extradition for the crimes against humanity committed.
John, what is it, do you think, that ordinary Cubans want? We heard there from our reporter that younger Cubans perhaps don't feel the same as the older generation. But will that translate to anything really happening on the ground?
Well, Cubans have wanted change for a long time, and to disagree with the presentation given beforehand, the Cubans that invaded in 1961 were not from Miami. They were Cubans who had left the island months prior as the regime that had promised a democratic transition from Batista instead delivered and consolidated a communist dictatorship. So thousands of Cubans left the island and then risked life and limb to try to overthrow Fidel and Raul Castro back in 1961. They failed. The regime consolidated itself. It did so with the aid of 40,000 Soviet troops on the ground in Cuba. And they were able to maintain power, as many communist dictatorships have done for generations, through their brutality. And that regime has not changed. You still have first-generation leadership in control in key sectors of the government, and they have a willingness to murder. Most recently, opposition activists Osvaldo Payá Sardinhas and Harold Cepero were murdered July 22nd of 2012. This was a figure who had been nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize, had won the Sakharov Prize, and was an alternative to the Castro regime, and he was extrajudicially executed. So you have a regime with a willingness to commit crimes against humanity to maintain power. That's why they hang on to power, regardless of the desires of the Cuban people.
John Suarez, Executive Director of the Center for a Free Cuba. Many thanks for that.
Thank you.